On Friday, Representative Pramila Jayapal and Senator Elizabeth Warren sat down to discuss President Joe Biden's student loan forgiveness plan. Jayapal praised Warren, calling her, quote, the single biggest influence in Congress for getting student debt cancellation done. The lawmakers praised Biden for enacting the program, noting that it is a step toward achieving racial equity, which is central to the Biden-Harris agenda. The pair then took questions from the audience, with Warren taking aim at former Secretary of Education Betsy DeVos over the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program.
The only reason that we have gotten this done is because of the movement that has made it happen. And so we are so proud of President Biden and of the organizing movement across the country for canceling student debt for up to 43 million people across this country. And that is what we are here to talk about. And really, there couldn't be a better person than the person I'm about to bring out. And she really needs no introduction, but I need to tell you a couple of things, just from a very personal perspective. You know, being in Congress and being in the House, sometimes there isn't a lot of connection over to the Senate. It's like there's an invisible line and you're not supposed to cross it. But I have had the great honor of working with somebody who is really one of the most brilliant people I've ever met. She is one of the most strategic people I have ever met. She is a woman that has a plan for everything, but it isn't just about talk. She actually gets it done. She knows the details, and she works really hard to make sure that everyone is included and nobody is left out. And so it is a great honor, great pleasure to introduce somebody who's been a guide, a friend, a mentor, a brilliant strategist with me, and somebody who has really given hope and inspiration to people across this country, Senator Elizabeth Warren.
I am to be here with you, and how glad I am to be here with your Congresswoman. That you really want to get things done in this world, it takes a lot of us working together. But it takes not just numbers, it takes that rare person who has insight, who will do her homework all the way to the bottom to figure out what needs to be done, what the language needs to look like, where we have to fight for it, and who has courage. Who has courage to stand up in public, who has courage to stand up to her colleagues, who has courage to stand up for what's right. And that is Pramila Jayapal, and I'm glad.
Well, we're so excited to have you and to talk about student debt cancellation. Yeah. Senator Warren is the single biggest influence in Congress for getting student debt cancellation done. And so, Elizabeth, I wanted you to just talk about this moment and what this action that the president has taken to cancel debt for 43 million people, what does it really mean? What is the impact of that for people across this country?
So many of you will know this personally as well, but I'll just kind of lay out the numbers on what this cancellation for 43 million Americans means. It means that about 20 million of them are going to have all of their debt wiped out. For a lot of those people, it'll be the first time in their adult lives that they wake up in the morning and they don't owe money to the federal government. Money that often goes for the other 23 million, it means the amount they owe is reduced. And just for a second, think about who these people are. There's an income cap. No one who makes more than $125,000 a year is going to get a single nickel of this money. But more critically, more than 90% of the folks who are getting help have incomes below $75,000 a year. The folks who are going to get the most help are people who are Pell recipients. And for any of you who don't know, Pell recipients are people, again, disproportionately, more than 90% have incomes below $60,000. These are people for whom college was a real risk. Didn't have a family to fall back on if it turned out it didn't work out. These were people who took on debt to try to make it through technical school, to make it through 2-year college, to make it through 4-year college, sometimes even graduate school, but who got out there and said, I'm going to give this my best effort. And they have, and now they're getting crushed by student loan debt. So what this is about is our federal government, after decades of saying, you really need post-high school education, good luck in getting it, and that the federal government's one contribution would be to be a lender, and I mean a lender who was a tough debt collector. Just a little side point, did you know that there are tens of thousands of people in this country whose social security checks are garnished by the federal government to pay their student loans? Whoa. Think about that. Think about that. And millions of people in this country who can't move out of mom's basement, who can't buy a car, who can't think about saving up the money to buy a home, who can't start a small business, who can't start a family because of the weight of student loan debt. And now, the President of the United States has said we can do better than that. We are a nation that invests in our people, and the best way, it's only step one, much work to do, but the best way to invest in our people is let's just knock out some of this student loan debt for 43 million Americans. I love, love, love.
Yes.
So at the Congressional Progressive Caucus, we have an executive action slate, which is a set of things that the president can do using his own authority. And this was at the top of our list. And one of the things, the arguments that we were making to the White House and to the country was around racial equity and the racial wealth gap. And I was hoping you could say a little bit about this, because when we started talking about this, of course, the other side started attacking us. And by the way, the reason they attacked us was because they know how darn popular this is. And they don't want it to happen because they know that people will see us delivering for folks across this country. But the racial wealth gap was one of the key arguments that I think really helped the White House also to get behind this, because the president has made it clear that racial justice is at the top of his agenda. We have made it clear that everything we do has to have a Justice 40 component to it, that 40% of our federal investments need to actually go towards Black and brown and indigenous communities and folks who are most disproportionately burdened, like poor people across this country. And so if you can talk a little bit about how student debt is connected to racial equity.
Excellent. So, look, I'm a teacher. I believe in education. This is my whole life. And the assumption underlying much of what we do is we can build more opportunity if everybody gets a good education, if everybody has educational opportunity. But it turns out, for post-high school education, once you've got to pay for it, I'm just going to focus on African Americans here. African Americans borrow more money to go to school, borrow more money while they're in school, and have a harder time paying it off when they get out of school. The consequences of racism throughout our economy and throughout our society show up over and over and over in how people finance college and then how they struggle with the debt from college. So there's a lot of ways to look at this, but I want to give you just one stat. 20 years out, we have measured now, 20 years out, people who borrowed money, where are they on their economic journey? The answer is, the average white person who borrowed money when they were in college or technical school 20 years ago, still owes 20 years out, 6% of what they originally borrowed. Damn, I mean, 20 years, folks, and they're still out there, they still owe money. Now, 6%, the end is at least in sight. The average African American, 20 years out, owes 95% of what they originally borrowed. Think about what that means. We're talking about people who will be paying that student loan debt until they die. And so what has started to happen, and what the data show, is that post-high school education, instead of helping close racial wealth gaps, has widened them. And that's the change we make by starting with canceling student loan debt, step one. And then step two, we have got to make college more affordable for everyone in this country.
That's right, and it used to be, I think, that post-high school education would actually help you to get there, and I think we're now in a place where that's not the case. And so there are a couple of other pieces to the President's executive order around capping the total amount of student debt as a percentage of income, and I think those don't get as much attention, but they're about, fixing the long-term problems that we have. It's not going to do everything, but talk about some of those.
Actually, I want to mention another one too. Public school teachers.
Yes.
Good, we've got some here. Firefighters, police officers, people who work for municipal government, state government, federal government, nurses, anybody working for a nonprofit hospital, nonprofit organizations. All of those folks originally under law were supposed to be eligible to pay for 10 years on their loans, and then at the end of 10 years, whatever balance remained, they were done. This was a way of saying, thank you for taking these jobs that serve the rest of us, that often don't pay as well. What we'll do is we'll cancel out the student loan debt. But this is where the loan servicers come in. More money. By shuffling people into different programs, not into the public service loan forgiveness, they gave out bad information, they hired the wrong people to administer their program. So there are a lot of people who worked in public service and worked on and off in public service who got no credit and are still out there dealing with their student loans. One of the things that has now changed is that anyone who is working in public service has from now until Halloween, until the end of the month, to come into the public service loan program and get credit for all of the months that they paid. And they don't have to be sequential. You can have some starts and stops. Get credit, and once they've hit 10 years worth of payments, whatever their loan balance is that remains will be wiped out. And that's going to be a huge difference for
That's
them.
a really good. Actually, we just did a training with the Washington Education Association, and about 300 educators across the country, maybe some of you were there, talking specifically about this and how to apply, because October 31st, you got to get it in quickly. So we're happy to help you. Our office is happy to help you. But the other part of the President's executive order is that it caps monthly payments on undergraduate debt to 5% of discretionary income, and it covers any accrued unpaid interest as well, so that a borrower's balance doesn't continue to grow. And I think that hasn't gotten enough attention either, because a lot of people that are in school, college, vocational school, whatever, thought maybe they were going to get left out. But that's not the case, right?
So actually, let me be a little nerdy for a minute.
We love it when Elizabeth Warren is really
But as Pramila says, one of the things that has really been overlooked in this conversation has been the changes to the income determined repayment plan. So just to understand this for a second, if you borrow a whole lot of money because that's what you need to make it through school, your loan repayment is based on how much you borrow. And if you only borrow a little bit of money, your loan repayment is based on how much you borrow. What's going to change now is to shift that around and say for anyone who needs to borrow money to go to school, what you pay back is going to be a function of how much you earn. So it's income determined rather than the amount of the loan balance. And as your Congresswoman said, it's going to be capped at 5% of your income. So what that's going to mean is that for anyone who wants to go to school, or who already is in school and has debt, you will have an opportunity to borrow what you need, and the government's going to say on the other side, we're going to partner up with you. And if you make a little bit of money, you pay a little bit on the other side. If you make a lot of money, you pay a lot on the other side. And then, if you go into public service, we're just going to do the go forward now, after 10 years of payments at 5%, you're done. And if you don't go into public service, it'll last until 20 years, but it's only 5% of your income. This is a huge shift going forward in helping people who otherwise might not be able to afford technical school, 2-year college, or 4-year college, to get an education and know that it's a modest amount of their income that they'll have to pay going forward. That's going to be huge.
It's a really big deal, and yeah, you can clap for that, sure. And as somebody who worked in nonprofits for 25 years before coming to Congress, you know, it also allows people to do the things that they love, whether it's starting a small business, whether it's working for a nonprofit, whether it's being a public school teacher or a public service employee.
Legal services.
Legal services. We have such a great legal services community here. So I have just 2 more questions for you. So start thinking about if you have questions that you want to ask as well. But in the first days after the administration announced this, there were 8 million applications on studentaid.gov. 8 million applications.
As the website did not crash.
The website did not crash. And one of the things that I know, I personally was on the phone with the White House Chief of Staff probably 5 times to make sure of, was that the application is simple. I mean, we do a lot of great things in the federal government, but sometimes it is very complicated, and we put up a lot of barriers. And one of the things we learned during COVID, with the child tax credit, with some of the other relief that we delivered, is that we actually block the very people we need to serve by making the application so complicated that nobody can actually do it, or requiring all kinds of documentation that is really hard to get, and we push people away. So this is not the case, right? So now you can go to studentaid.gov. That's how
Studentaid.gov. I see people writing that down.
Write it down, and you can apply. And in fact, the reporter who was just talking to me told me that he had applied when he was one of the 8 million people, and it took him 3 minutes. 3 minutes.
He was
okay?
slow. I'm just saying that. I really am. You should look at this. Even if you're not someone who needs to apply, it's worth taking a look at. Because you know how I think of this? This is government working for people instead of people working for government. This says we're trying to get this aid out. It boiled it down to what are just the minimum number of things that we need to know. And then it just asks at the end, sign an affidavit that says, yes, I'm eligible, and it lays out what it takes to be eligible, and you're done. And then your application is now speeding off through the system, right? This would be a fun little, right, graphic on this. And we will see people actually get their debt canceled in the next few weeks. It's gonna happen.
Elizabeth and I were texting each other the day the announcement came out, and we were going to say that we were both saying, like, this is such a joyful day.
Right.
I mean, we were
Lots of
hearing,
emojis.
yes. Just the ability for people to feel empowered is what I was thinking about as you were telling people what it takes to apply. We want you to feel empowered to get your debt canceled. We want you to feel like the federal government is working for you. And you kind of answered my last question before we go to audience, but it was really about what's the next step. So somebody's applied, what should they expect? How long is it going to take? You know, all of that.
So, you know, you always want to under-promise and over-deliver, but bless them. The folks who are administering this are set up to run these things through as long as you've got your information right so they can find you in their system. The notices that your debt is actually canceled will be coming within just a few weeks after you've hit send on your application. So this is ridiculous. I want to add one more thing. I appreciate so much all of you being here for this, but we've got to make sure everybody else knows about it. One of the things that we now know is that not everybody applies who could get help. So we've done everything possible over in the Department of Ed to make it a low barrier, but it's still, somebody's got to get to a laptop, somebody's got to get to somebody who can type this thing out for them if they can't do it themselves. So I ask you, every one of you, please think through, who do you know who might need a little encouragement? Who do you know who you may not even know has student loan debt? You know, we don't all wear a thing around saying $27,291, right? Who do you know that you might mention about the student loan debt forgiveness? Who do you know who could use some extra help making this happen? And please, reach out. Nobody's going to be aggravated that you asked if it turns out they've already applied and gotten this done. But you could be the difference between whether or not someone is just closed out and stays where they are or actually has an opportunity to build a much more secure financial future. So please be part of this.
Great. Wonderful. Well, we will take, if anyone has questions from the audience. Oh my goodness, okay, let's see these bright lights, but why don't we take right here, and then we'll take right there, and then I'll go to the sides. How about that? So go ahead.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Thank you both for everything you do. Just picking up on what you were just talking about, how not everybody fills these out, not everybody knows about it. As a political science professor, I can assure you that most people in the country don't even know who both of you are.
Yep, right.
And sadly,
Counting on them.
I know. Sadly, it's true. Really.
Unfortunately, they all show up in the same restaurant I do.
Everybody knows Elizabeth Warren.
Yeah, I'm sad to say they don't. They really don't.
Yeah.
And so, and I just saw in the paper that which most people don't read, that some significant portion of young people are the primary source for their news is TikTok. So, are you doing things like reaching out to TikTok stars to get them to talk about this?
So it's a great question, and the answer is we're activating everybody we can. Actually, I want to tell you who've been really terrific partners in this, unions. And I particularly want to call out the NEA and the AFT and AFT. SEIU actually has also been really good. So that's been part of it because they have other ways of reaching their members and making sure that someone opens the email and you can put the link right in the email. Your point is a good one. We have started reaching out to some friends of ours who are known in other ways, just trying to get more people in. I want to draw a distinction here just because I'm counting on all of you to help. The public service loan forgiveness, you've got to do that by Halloween. Anybody, this is a short window to be able to take your old payments and get them counted going forward. For the income determined repayment plan, that application won't start till next spring. When it does, You've got, at any moment, you can move into it. The debt forgiveness is this year and all of next year. So if it occurs to you while you've got family and at Christmas, oh my gosh, you know, keep in mind, this is not just kids. My elderly aunt guaranteed loans for her beloved child. Somebody that you know tried to go back to school after the crash in 2008 and is still paying off that debt even though they're now retired. If it occurs to you someone else, don't think, darn, the program must be over because I remember they mentioned something about Halloween. Nope. Yeah. Program will still be in place. So keep it in your brain as you move through other places. But we're going to keep doing the same. I hadn't thought about doing a TikTok on it, but maybe I should.
Well, and I know that Alexandria, Ocasio-Cortez,
Yep.
and Ilhan have already been reaching out through their social media accounts and their TikToks on this. We've really had an all-out push to make sure everyone is using every single channel. And as the senator said, we'll be continuing to do events through the next year. I will be honest and say I think we were all a little bit nervous about how the rollout would go, so we wanted to make sure that
yay, not yay, are we yay? You know that feeling, yeah.
Make sure that everything worked, but we will continue to push it out. And yeah, we really need your help, you know, particularly our educators here, and it's good to make the distinction between all these different programs, but I think that we will keep going, to your point. And yes, we're thinking about other ways to reach out. So yes.
Hi, I'm Ellie. I'm a junior at UW, and it's really cool to meet you guys. And I was wondering, so this whole plan is part of an executive action, and is there a plan to sort of codify this 5% repayment plan into law, as opposed to making
it's already in law.
It is in law. Okay.
So
the next president couldn't.
Well, let me see it slightly differently. This is why you heard me just a minute ago say it won't be ready until next spring.
Okay.
It has to go through rulemaking under the Administrative Procedures Act. So the authorization has been around, God, I have to go back and look. I mean, like decades.
Very long time.
Oh, very long time. It's just, it was a crappy program, crappy being a term of art here. No, it just was. The payment rates were too high. They did negative amortization like they were some damn subprime lender. It was just not a well-done program. And the loan servicers kept people out of it, got them into different programs that paid off better for the loan servicers. So the legal framework is already there. The Department of Education writes the regulations around it, but because of notice in a hearing and opportunity for place. Now, your point is a fair point. We're going to get this in place. We'll get it in place next spring. Yay. There's a reason we need to keep a Democrat in the White House. And I'll just be blunt. We need that not just now. We need it 2024, 2028, and 2032 until we become an America where both parties believe that trying to help people who are trying to get an education is a value that both parties embrace. Betsy DeVos could come in and put this whole thing at risk on the payment plan, but this is part of what will be on the ballot every presidential year until we get some coming together around this. But my view on that is that shouldn't stop us from doing it. It means we need to go full speed ahead and get it in place right now and get as many people into the program as we can.
That's right, because once somebody asked me this actually, once you've had your debt canceled,
Oh,
nobody's going to take that away. So let's get it done quickly, get in quickly, and the part of the reason for the public service loan forgiveness program being so terrible for the last several years is Betsy DeVos and the Trump administration didn't approve most of the applications that went into that program. So even when we have these programs, if you have the wrong administration they don't utilize them. So I do think that's really important. Maybe it's a good plug. you all can see, I think, or you have on your chairs, these QR codes. And I hope you will scan those QR codes. There are 2 events coming up this weekend that we are hoping that you might want to volunteer with us on. One is door knocking for Patty Murray tomorrow with Elizabeth. And the other is on Sunday, Kim Schreier. My campaign is also door knocking for Kim Schreier. That is a neck and neck race, and we need Kim back in the house. And scanning that QR code, even if you can't make it this weekend, will help you to get in with us, because we're doing stuff for candidates across the country, whether it's Katie Porter, Stacey Abrams, whoever it is. We have phone banks that are happening all the time. We have canvases that are happening. And this is a really important election, as I said at the very beginning. It's not just that we have to keep all these good things. It's also that we have to protect our democracy and our freedoms. So we have time. Yes, please. We have time probably for 2 more questions. I'm going to go right here to you, and then I'll go over here to you. Yes.
Awesome. This is just very exciting. I voted for both of you. Voted for president. But no, I know that time is of the essence, but this is a very big moment. I'm so excited that this is happening. When I saw this coming through, I was like, is this real? Is this real? But then I'm going to go into some things that I hope that you can help me with. Sure. I'm a BIPOC woman. I was raised by a single mother. I'm sorry, I get really emotional very easily. No college funds were set aside for me. I'm 42, by the way, so I attended both UW and Cornish here in Seattle. I graduated magna cum laude 2004. I originally borrowed over $44,000. I am a Pell Grant recipient. I've been paying consistently for 18 years. No deferments, no defaults, through the pandemic. I've maybe been late 8 times in 18 years. I've repaid $43,500 today. But because at the time of graduating from Cornish, I was a victim of a predatory loan situation with Sallie Mae. They came into our school and said, this is what you have to do. So me and my husband both graduated. We were like, I guess this is what we're supposed to do. 23 years old, no advice. We signed up with Sallie Mae. Those loans are now owned by Navient. I still owe, according to Navient and the government, $24,000. I have paid $43,500 of my money out of $44,000 that I owed, and they're telling me I still owe $24,000. I will not, according to their rules, be able to pay back that money until 2030. I still have 8 more years apparently to pay on this loan. And I apparently am in this small group of people that was left out of this amazing relief program that was going to change my life and change my future. I am not a home buyer. I'm trying to put my 8-year-old son through school that he needs. And I don't know what I'm supposed to do, because I still have all these years of debt now ahead of me that I was left out of. And I know that they keep saying, it's a small group of people this affected. That small group of people is the population of Seattle. That's the equivalent of the amount of people that this has affected. So I am asking you, someone, I know this is not your fault. I really care about you as a politician, because I know you care about us. But as a representative of the current administration, what do you have to say to someone like me?
So, tell me your name.
Jessica Bagley, and I'm in
Jessica?
Jessica. Yeah.
So, Jessica, first of all, I'm very grateful to you for telling your story. When people talk about student loan debt who don't have it, they never hear stories like this. Folks who borrowed $43,000, paid $42,500, and still owe another $23,000. Our federal government should not be in the business of squeezing people for thousands of dollars when their worst sin is they try to get an education. We don't build a future that way. So I appreciate your offering firsthand testimony. You're talking about what happened in the FELS loan program. And you may recall, I'm going to be nerdy here again just for a minute, You saw that after President Biden announced the cancellation, that a lawsuit was filed, Republicans filed a lawsuit in Missouri, and the way they got standing was, I don't want to take you through all the technical stuff, but it was through the hook of the FELS program. And so to try to protect the rest of the program, the administration said, we're not going to do FELS right now. Nothing changes about the underlying law or the power of what the president can do. So for right now, we're going to push these pieces through. It's the right thing to do. And by the way, we got a very good court ruling just yesterday. We're going to get those cancellations started, but this is not over. And you have not been forgotten, and you will not be forgotten. Not by me, not by the Congresswoman, and I'm very sure of this, not by the White House. I am very sure of this.
And Jessica, if you can make sure to just connect with one of my team that's here, we will stay close with you on this. I think the senator's point, just to say, this is a temporary thing to protect the program, but it doesn't mean you're off the table. And we will do everything we can to help you find all the ways that you can get some benefit here, okay? Thank you so much. Okay, last question. Okay, I was pointing at you. Sorry. Yeah. Right.
Sort of quick.
Good.
Okay. Oh,
Yes.
okay, I'll speak up. Hi, I work here at the school, so I'm very involved in education. And I came because my kids can't, I have 2 children and they're 40 and 36 who have debt. And they couldn't make it today, but I'm here because I think the 2 of you are amazing. So thank you for all you do. My question on their behalf is, and I just want to say also, one of them just started work. She's a social worker. She just started public service. She's working in a school system in Bellevue. And the other one has really been dinged by COVID. She's smart and all that, but she just kind of went into a cocoon. So this affects how people, whether they can or can't pay back too. Okay, my question is, my kids, they have grad school debt, not undergraduate school. Does this apply to graduate school debt?
It does.
Okay, and the other question is, since October 31st is the deadline for people in public service, since my daughter has only been working in public service a short time, I'm going to assume school is public service.
Doesn't matter. She should go ahead and make sure that she is transferred into the program. If she's got 5 months, that's 5 months worth of payments. And that's what you want, because the way this is set up is it's 120 payments, 10 years, 12 months. It's 120 monthly payments. And this window of transfer is if you worked in public service anytime, whether you were in the right program, doesn't matter anymore. If you were in public service, that's good enough. They'll let you in and they'll count it, but it's got a stop date on it because of other pieces of the law. It's got a stop date on it. So have her get in and apply by October 31st.
But she only gets credit for the number of months she's been working.
That's right.
Yeah, okay,
That's right.
Thank you very
And
much.
true for anybody else, if you have some months working anywhere, in public service, in nonprofits, in federal government, in state government, you can accumulate that and use it and just sit down and do the math. Does it work out then for you to be in a public service program, and are you aiming toward, you have to do another year or 2 and then you'll have your 10 years in and you can cancel out the rest of the student loan debt. I also want to say, because you mentioned about your I think you said your son,
2 daughters.
daughter with COVID. For people, one of the things that's happened at the Department of Education is that I'm just going to be blunt, it was bad for a long time. It did not work well for a long time. It did not work for the people who had to borrow money, who needed help. It basically worked for the loan servicers. Then Betsy DeVos came in, and you thought it was bad before that. It just got staggeringly worse. Public service loan forgiveness, for example, for every 1,000 people who applied and thought they were eligible, they were approving less than one. And the rest were just told, no, sorry, you were in the wrong program, didn't do the paperwork, we don't have anything, we don't know where you were. I mean, just a whole range, didn't even answer it. And every other place where you could deal with the outstanding debts, it was a series of closed doors, of no's, of runarounds. That has changed. And so now we're talking about student loan debt forgiveness, we're talking about public service loan forgiveness, we're talking about income-determined repayment going forward, we're talking about how we're going to have to think more about what to do with FELS. But there are other pieces too. So people who are permanently disabled, it flew completely under the radar, but this administration came in and said, you're done with your student loan debt. Once you have permanent disability, we're just not, your government is not going to try to keep squeezing you for debt and keep building up the amount that you owe. For people who were cheated by the for-profit colleges, this Department of Education, this administration, President Biden has said, we're going to cancel out these debts instead of trying to squeeze more money out of you. And I mention that by way of saying, when there's a program that's this big, and the student loan program is enormous, and not just enormous in dollars, but people who came through and they borrowed at different times and have different stories, there are lots of smaller pieces that don't get a lot of attention. But to me, the heart of this is the folks at the Department of Education right now are trying to get government on the side of students, to get it on the side of borrowers, to get it on the side of parents, and to make it work for everybody who's tried to get an education. I'm in that, Pramila is in that, and we need all of you to help us get the word out so that everyone gets the help they need. Thank you all.
This November, because we have transformed the country in just 2 years with the tiniest margins, we can do more. So thank you all so much. Thank you, Senator Warren.